So next album, In God We Trust. Same thing here. I just took one song and I just actually referred to it briefly there. I took, once again, the closer to the album is The Rain. Man, The Writings on the Wall was a awesome song as well. There's a lot of good songs in that, but the album in general, it's often been lambasted for being so overly produced. Michael Sweet said that himself many times. To be honest, I kind of got bored of this album fairly quickly when it first came out. I mean, I wore it out at first, right? Yeah. Like I did with every Stryper album, but it wore off on me kind of quick. Just a bit too poppy, little too poppy and less metal, I thought. But that being said, from both a musical and a lyrical standpoint, The Rain really stood out for me. Song was just pure metal. It had just a great warning message about, how fame and fortune are great for this world, but one day, we're all going to stand before God. We're going to stand before our Creator. We're going to be judged for how we lived our lives. No amount of fame or fortune can buy us that ticket into heaven, right? So only by us accepting the grace of God and the sacrifice of His Son on the cross, that's how we're going to be saved. That's what we Christians believe. And so I thought that song did a great way of portraying that and showing that, here we are, we're rock stars now. They were legitimate rock stars, and they're living the rock star life, but also warning to, we still got to keep our faith and do the right things, right? So
yeah. Well, musically, it's my least favorite song, man, on this album.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean,
well, of course, you said you're more into mid-tempo, so fair enough.
I am, but Stryper sometimes really get it right though with fast songs as well, and we're going to get into some of that later. But for me, this did not get me at all. I mean, listen, it comes on, and I've got all the Stryper stuff, like playing in my car on rotation sometimes, and I won't skip it or anything. But I don't know. I think this, similar to the Yellow and Black Attack, I think the production took the heaviness out of this song in particular because it was a fast song, and it was almost, when I was actually listening to it again because we was getting ready to do the video review, and it's almost like the drums are so high in the mix that the guitars are like way back there, and they're not at the forefront, which Stryper were all about, and the guitars always cut through, and it felt like the drums were just massive, and the guitars weren't there, and the bass also. The bass on this one, even though that you can hear it quite well on some of the other songs, on this one it just didn't come through. And of course, vocally, I mean, I always thought that this was sped up, but Michael Sweet said it wasn't. He said, it's so high, it almost sounds like I don't know, like a comic book character of some kind. It's really strange, but he said he wasn't well during the recording and he had to sing differently. What they have got on this is my favourite little tremolo arm bit from Oz Fox on this solo. So it's got that in it. But no, I just think if this was redone, this song, and I still wouldn't want it redone if they asked me to do other songs. I'd rather have them. But if they decided to redo this song, and I know they're talking about doing some stuff like that, I think it could be much better.
I agree. I would actually be very interested to see this album completely re-recorded.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw what they did on Reborn with In God We Trust, and they changed it to just the initials IGWT, but. They really gave, and I mean, I'll talk about Reborn later, but they really made it a little bit more modern sounding, and it wasn't so overly produced, right? Like, I mean, I swear sometimes you listen to the album In God We Trust and you think, wait, they always talk about the 24 track studio, or were they maybe using a 48 track or a 96 track? Like, there's just so many overlaps and overlays on and that nothing sounded natural
And I
on
think,
that album. And that it's too
yeah,
bad because I think overall it's a good album. I
yeah.
think, it's got some good material on it.
Well, you mentioned one there. You mentioned one beforehand, Writings on the Wall. Wow, what a track that is. I mean, that's heavy, but it's got the heaviness there still. Could have been even heavier with a better production, but that's a great song. I don't know. I think they missed a trick on this. They went heavy at the end of this, but something else would have been better for me.
And the sad thing is, because they did this, and they Michael has talked about this many times, they don't like to use a lot of backing tracks in concert. I know you said you have not seen them in concert. I've seen them 17 times. And Michael does use backing tracks minimally, which I fully support. I mean, but yeah, he's like, because there's just so much on this album, like they basically just, like, you just don't hear any of these. They finally started playing, Always There For You live. And then when they redid again, In God We Trust, they started doing that live. But there's no other songs on this album that have been played live that I'm aware of since the In God We Trust tour. Right. So, and that's too bad, because there are some good songs on here that I would love to hear live.
I'm exactly the same as you, though. This wore out for me quite quickly as well. I mean, Soldiers and To Hell with the Devil were still going well, like beyond this one for me. I was still playing them more than I did. I like you as well. I loved it at the beginning. I did play it a lot at the beginning, but it wore off quite quickly for me as well. Just the same as you, really. So
yeah. Okay, so wow, Against the Law. This album, obviously known for its controversy. A lot of fans gave them flack, thinking the band had just given up on their Christian faith. And to this day, though, I personally think Against the Law is one of their best albums from a musical standpoint. And one of their best. I don't think necessarily is their best, but I know Oz Fox just mentioned it. He said he never played better guitar than on this album. So I'll let you weigh in on that, of course, a little bit more. But I do feel that at this point in their career, it was really tough for them. They've talked about it. Guys all admit that they were not living as well as they were preaching. They were struggling, I guess, and it's hard. I maybe put in my notes here, maybe even a little of the fortune and fame from the previously discussed The Rain. They were starting to make some good money. They were, getting famous. And it's tough. It's tough. Yeah. It's tough to, as a Christian, when you're successful financially and everything's going well, it's very easy sometimes to just let the faith slide a little bit and start, taking it all yourself and not forgetting that who put you there.
Yeah.
And so that's probably, I'm just making assumptions here. I mean, obviously the guys can, if you're talking to them, you get more input, but I think they've all mentioned little tidbits here and there. Or I still feel this album did have a few gems from a lyrical perspective. I don't believe for a moment they gave up on their Christian lyrics at all on this. I mean, some of them were dual meaning songs, and then some of them were just about good morality, like Two-Time Woman and stuff like that. It was just, hey, you shouldn't cheat on your spouse. Two bodies, one mind, one soul. One of my favorites on this album, that kind of talks a little bit, I think, about marriage and whatnot and stuff like that. Not that kind of guy is, once again, all those songs were all kind of, just good, clean, lyrically, not necessarily a preachy message, just a good living message, right? Yeah. But from pure Christian lyrical standards, and this track I've chosen is Caught in the Middle, and definitely one of my favorite tracks on the album. And when you look at the lyrics, it just feels like Michael was I felt, pouring out his heart and telling a story of his everyday battle to live his faith, play great music, avoid the temptations that are very real for everyone, and even more so for someone living the rock star life. It's I brought up got the lyrics here. Just bear with me for 1 second here. He says, you've been working hard trying to make your life appealing. You've got no regard. You don't know what the hell you're feeling. You've got everything. Live like a king, but how will you live tomorrow? You're caught in the middle. You don't know where to go. Turn it around. Come back to the ground before you break and lose control. Or are you at the point of no return? You've got to make a call. You got to make a choice before you get burned. Got to do what it takes. Make no mistakes. Don't live your life in sorrow. It's very, I think when you listen to those lyrics, that's what I get from it, is that he's going through that period where he's struggling. And we all know what happened next, because it was after that Michael did leave the band. And so obviously it was even more serious than any of us would have thought at the time. But, that's kind of what I got from that song.
Well, you've chosen a great song here again, mate. I mean, there are, I agree with you. There's some great tracks on this album. It wasn't one of my favourites. It's sort of like, after In God We Trust, you did want them to do something different, because they were starting, I'm not saying they were starting to sound samey. I think they definitely missed a trick on In God We Trust, but you wanted something different. And as fans, you're never happy, are you? So they give you something different. And then I wasn't happy about that either at the time. but there was, I mean, the production on this, let's just start with that. It's really great. I mean, this is nearly up there with some of their best production.
Wasn't it Tom Werman, I think?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And he had produced, who was it?
He done some stuff. Did he do some stuff with Motley Crue? Did he way back when? No, I might be.
Might have been, or did he do Metallica maybe too?
He
or
may
am
have
I
done.
thinking of someone else?
He may have done. I know.
Yeah,
Bob,
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But he's definitely one of the well-known producers back in the day. So.
Yeah, they worked with Michael Wagner as well, didn't they? Stryper, I think, as well. But the production was just a million times better than In God We Trust. And the guitar was right up there. I mean, I know we're talking about Caught in the Middle, but that guitar, when it comes in that like Van Halen jammy part at the beginning of Against the Law, is just like, whoa. Mm-hmm. You just think that sounds absolutely superb. But getting back to Caught in the Middle, and this album in general sounded, even though, look, I can't play guitar, but when you listen to it compared to the albums before, it sounded more straightforward, more rock and roll, less of those fiddly bits, but they were there, but in a different way, if you know what I mean. Love the chorus, because it was different again, where they've gone for their sort of high-pitched choir type voice, choruses in the last few albums. This had a really sort of a nice sort of lower range chorus. It was quite a cool chorus. I loved it. Excellent solo again. And I noticed when I was listening to this solo the other day, it's almost like a Middle Eastern sort of feel to the beginning of it. I love it when metal bands do that sort of Middle Eastern type sound on their solos. But yeah, Caught in the Middle, right up there with some of my favourite tracks of Stryper, basically. So it's a gem on this album. And I must admit, I've warmed more to this album in later years than I did back then, when I was what year was this? 80.
This was
90, was it? Yeah, 90. So, I mean, got to remember I was 20 then as well, so I don't know what I was getting up to. Probably bad things, but yeah, that, I don't know, I lost my way a little bit musically, I suppose, anyway, in general. So, I think, but I did like the album when it came out, but I thought it was, I don't know, I wanted Stryper back as I think they were with To Hell with the Devil, rather like that, rather than a complete sort of thing.
It's funny, we're all, so many people are different. I mean, I've got some friends that still swear this is the best album Stryper ever did. and from a musical perspective. Yeah, everyone's different. There's I think there's Stryper fans on both sides of both camps here, because in fact, I would say there's probably very few Stryper fans that are in the middle on this album. I think if there's one album that has been probably the most polarizing of their career, it might be this one, just because there's the fact that some Christians were just turned off because they felt like they'd given up on their Christian faith, which they didn't give up. They were struggling though. Yeah. And so there's some that just lambast them for that. But then there's the other side that thought that musically that they had just taken it to a whole nother level. And as I said, even just recently, Oz Fox I told you this already, but he had mentioned it for him. Even though that album signified a rough patch in their lives, but musically, he said that his guitar playing on that album was just second to none, right? And I'd have to agree. Next song I chose was, and this one they do still play this one live, and that is All for One. I tell you, man, this song could have been written right here in 2020 and be just as relevant for the times we're living in currently. I mean, just listen to these lyrics. Take a look around. Won't you tell me what you see? Is there love to be found in this world's pain and misery? Tell me, will it ever change? All for one and one for all. Isn't that the way it should be? Will we ever change this world? United, we will stand up tall. United, we will never fall. It's all for one and one for all. You just look around right now. The turmoil that's going on in this world right now is just it's crazy, especially in the U.S., where you have people on both sides of the political spectrum, and so many of them are just spewing hate towards the other side. You look online at all the keyboard warriors, who just say some of the cruelest, disgusting things in the comments of someone's Facebook or Twitter just because, they have a different opinion. All I can say is God help us all. If we could all just listen to this song and learn to love and respect each other, even if we don't agree, who should be president? or whether the COVID-19 lockdowns and mandatory mask laws are justified, no matter what your opinions are, if we could all just learn to just get along, like just be kind to each other, this world would just be a better place.
It's been going that way. It's been going that way for a long time now, man. And it's just, I've moved recently just over a year ago to a better part of the country where there's not as much trouble, there's not as much hate, where people do get along more, and my fear is probably won't be in my lifetime, but that will spread down here as well, because it's not going to get any better, I don't think, but that's just me, that's my opinion, but right, anyway, let's get back to the song. So if you finish, mate, are you okay with that one?
Yep. I'm finished with the lyrics side. Just take it away musically.
Well, you definitely chose another great song, off this album. So love there's a galloping riff that goes on within this, but with a little bit of clean guitar at the end of each of those gallops, which is just, I love it, absolutely love it. This could have been, I think, on a lot of other Stryper albums, even the ones now, the ones before it, it's one of their best songs. Another catchy chorus, and Michael's voice. I know we've already spoken about Caught in the Middle, but what a major improvement from the album before. And I know he's always had a great voice, but to hear the power, as well as him hitting the notes on this album in general, it's just amazing. He's starting to get that, how he's got that sort of aggressive side to his voice now more. you can sort of hear that coming
Mhm.
through on Against the Law album in general. You can
His
hear
voice
that.
has really matured. I find like
Oh yeah,
it's got more grit to it now.
yeah,
It's
definitely,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah. But,
yeah.
great song. Another great choice, man, for me as well. Even though you're going for the lyric side, it's a great choice for me as well. I loved it when you picked that one. So well done.
Well, I tell you, I may have been going lyric side, but I'm still
You're thinking it musically
musically.
as well, of
I'm
course.
still
Yeah,
thinking musically too. Yeah.
yeah.
I just don't want to steal your thunder, man. That's your job on this show. And
That's great.
also, to be fair, I'm not very technical when it comes to music. Like I don't pick out a lot of the musical.
Hmm.
What's the word I'm looking for? I'm not a musician myself. I mean, I've tried to pick up guitar. I got a couple guitars in my living room
Hmm.
that have a nice decoration there, but they're not being used.
Yeah, well,
Um,
listen, it's not just with the lyric side of it. It's not just Stryper that I lack on. I don't look into lyrics enough, and you've probably been watching some of the shows with Darren O'Sullivan, who does some of the shows with me. He's picked up on, he looks at lyrics constantly. He quotes lyrics, and he can't believe that I don't do it enough, and I probably don't, because it's a really important part of any band's, music is the lyrics. And it's a second one for me. I'm always music first, and then maybe I look at the lyrics, So
mhm.
we're all different, aren't we?
For me, it's always my number one for any band. It's always vocals, not necessarily the lyrics, but just the vocals, right? I don't care if a band smokes musically. They could be the greatest guitar players, greatest drummers, and everything. If the vocalist sucks, I just can't listen to them.
Mate, I'm with you on that. I'm
I
totally with
can't.
you
I
on that.
can't
Yeah.
listen to. I can't. It's sad because I've tried to listen to bands like Slipknot. Perfect example. And Slipknot is an example of a band that I actually likes some of their stuff because they got a great vocalist actually, who when he's got his melodic vocal on, and then you listen to their instrumentation, it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But then they get into that screamo stuff. I can't do it, man. I can't get into that death metal screamo growl.
You need to listen to Stone Sour rather than them.
Exactly. Yeah, Stone
Yeah.
Sour is the same singer, right? Yeah. So,
he does less of that screaming.
yeah,
So.
yeah. So,
Well, then, mate,
anyways,
we're up to an interesting point now, aren't we? So,
yes. Now we're up to Reborn. So I have a love-hate relationship with Reborn. Like pretty much every other Stryper fan on planet Earth, I was starved for a Stryper reunion. I actually went to see them in Cleveland, Ohio for their 2003 7 Weeks Live in America reunion tour. And gotta say, what a high it was to see my favorite band in concert again after so many years thinking it was never going to happen. Then the rumors started up that they might put the band together again permanently. And of course, we all know what happened next. Michael had recorded Reborn as a solo album. But after sharing it with the rest of the guys, they decided to re-record it as a Stryper album. So I have to say that being, so starved for new Stryper, I wore out this CD in my car. I played it nonstop for well over a month, like well over. But then the moment of truth hit. This album had some good songs on it, but it was probably one of my least favorite Stryper albums to date. Just didn't have enough punch. I think it would have been a great Michael Sweet solo CD, and I'm actually looking forward to hearing Reborn again, which Michael says is being released next year, I think.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's what he's calling it, Reborn Again.
Yeah.
Which I think is a great title. And it'd be interesting just to see, he's going to add a bit more guitar solos to it and just give it his solo touch. And it'll be interesting to see what the result is. But you know what? Hey, for the purpose of this program, I chose the song "Live Again." These lyrics really tell the story of someone who is just tired of living his or her own way and finally just giving it over to God. When I listen to this song, it comes close to home actually on several levels. My father, he became a Christian at a young age, married my mom, who's also a strong Christian woman. As such, my sister and I accepted Christ in our early years. However, my dad would be the first to tell anybody. He did tell people this. He struggled for many years. He loved God, but he never really ever gave God total control. He always tried to just do everything himself. And he struggled. He struggled in so many areas. He struggled financially. Him and my mom hit quite a severe rough patch in their marriage that I honestly thought they wouldn't pull out of. But they did, which was great. But anyways, it was probably about 10 to 15 years before he passed away. And he just prayed a simple prayer. He basically just said, God, I've had enough living my own way. And from this day forward, I'm giving it all to you. And I don't know, man, but I witnessed it. And it might be hard for someone like yourself, non-believer, that's fine. But I witnessed it firsthand that my dad, it was like instantaneously became a different person. It was like a light switch went off, right? Everything he did after that point, and he was just constantly smiling. He was constantly, he was volunteering. He did all kinds of things. He started working for a missionary organization that was working with Haiti. Him and my mom packed up and moved from Ontario to Vancouver, just because my dad just felt the call to go and work for this organization out there. He did that. He after that point, he was literally the happiest person I'd ever seen him be, ever. And, sadly, lost my dad in 2016.
Oh, man.
And he actually...
I lost my dad in the same year.
Yeah. My dad went on a Christian men's retreat, and with a group of guys from church and stuff, or a couple different churches actually. They went up northern Ontario, and on their free time they could choose to do different stuff. And my dad, at the age of 76, decided to ride an ATV for the first time. Unfortunately, it didn't go so well. And he had an accident. He wiped it out, and he had like 9 broken ribs, a broken left clavicle, a punctured lung, and a minor brain bleed. So he was in the hospital for a bit. And then the funny thing was, he was actually supposed to come out. They were actually getting ready. I had gone to see him, and actually my son had gone to see him on this Wednesday. I had seen him on the Monday, and on the Wednesday I had a golf tournament for a client of mine that invited me to a golf tournament. And I went golfing because they were saying my dad would probably be out of the hospital by Friday, right? He was, they managed to puncture lung was healed, stuff like that. So, and my ex-wife took my son to see him on the Wednesday, and they were there for about an hour. Apparently they were joking around. My son was calling my dad Evel Knievel. And then after they left, they came in. Apparently, the nurse said they came in to feed a dinner, and my dad just was kind of not really hungry and was just tired. And so they said, okay. So they let him rest. And when they came back on their next rounds, he was gone. And we all gathered at the hospital, and I got to standing all around his bed. He was passed away. My dad had this huge smile on his face. You know, here he is, the life's out of him, but he had this physical smile on his face. I really believe he just got a glimpse of his Savior and said, you know what? 3.5 years or so of rehab at the age of 76, nah. I think I got a better place I could be. That's what I think. You know what? I don't know, but I tell you, there's something about that. I mean, and you know, that's, you know, I'm kind of went off on a tangent. I wasn't even necessarily planning on talking the story, but you know, just the long and short of it is this song just speaks to that, what I felt my dad went through. And yeah, good song, good hard rocking song. Of all the songs on the album, it was definitely one of the bigger rockers. So I'll let you talk more musically, but yeah, that's what I get.
First of all, sorry about your dad. I mean, I lost mine the same year, so
yeah,
it was so hard. But so the song itself, obviously the production. I'm a big production man, as you know, so
yeah.
The drums for me were very distracting throughout this album. You know, not as distracting as St. Anger of Metallica. You know, not that distracting, but distracting enough. And obviously, you know, it's been mentioned about the production on this. It's more modern, if you like, isn't it? But at that time, it was more modern. It was that way. But I really found it all the way through the album distracting. Although this song is a good song, and it's a great heavy riffing as well, which could actually be, you know, when I'm listening to this album, and I think it's an underrated album as it is, but I still find the production distracting, as I said. But some of the songs are really great, you know. They're really great, and they could literally be on other albums, like especially the newer ones, but maybe with some tweaks, you know, like what he's maybe going to do with it, you know. But I know he's bringing it out as a solo album, isn't he? Not as a Stryper album.
Yes, that's what he's doing. The Reborn Again is what it's going to be called, apparently. And
but you know what you get with Michael Sweet albums now. They're fantastic, aren't they? Anyway, so what he can add to this now, I'm really interested, because I just think that the songs suffered, and they were a lot better than they sounded. If you know what I mean. I mean, the intricacy is lost again on that production, that sort of murkier production, that drum sound. You know, it was one of those drum sounds that was all across a lot of albums at that time, and I could see what they were going for, you know. But and their technical ability wasn't shining through because of it. But the song itself, that song "Live Again," is a really good song, amongst a lot of other great songs on that album. But let down by that production again. But it's a good choice, though, mate. Really good choice.
Gotta interject just a little bit what you said about the solo album there too. I gotta say, when 10 came out, I guess that was last year. Yeah. I mean, I listened to that album. I said, this is I think the best stuff Michael's done in his entire career, including Stryper. I mean, I was just blown away.
Brilliant.
Well,
Brilliant
that's
album.
for another video, though.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
We're gonna have to do a top 10 Michael Sweet, I think, or something down the road.
I ain't got a problem with that, mate. I ain't got a problem with that.
All right, so next album, Murder by Pride. Murder by Pride, another of my lesser favorite albums in the Stryper discography. However, there were definitely a few gems, and after a long 4-year hiatus, which was actually really difficult for us as fans, because you know, we finally got the band back together again. 2005 Reborn came out, and then of course we all know that his wife Kyle got diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer, and so Michael was obviously going through that, and you know, and of course his wife eventually did pass. So very, very tough time in his life, I'm sure. And but but after that was all over, and he even got to tour with Boston. I actually went to that show. That was great.
Oh wow.
So yeah, but as far as Murder by Pride goes, uh, one track specifically that really resonated with me the first time I heard it, and still does, and that's Mercy Over Blame. I just love this song. It's one that keeps people, the one thing that keeps people from the Christian faith, I believe, is all the dogma. A lot of people get the idea that Christianity is all about rules and regulations, and if you break them, it's hell and damnation. Truth is, though, for if someone wants to really know, Christianity has actually got one of the most simplest messages, right? God, the Creator, sent Jesus to die so that we don't have to. Period. As Christians, when we go before the judgment seat one day, we're all going to stand before God. And what we believe is that Christ, he stands at the right-hand side of the Father. He's our attorney. That's exactly what he is. He's basically anybody who has chosen to accept his love and his sacrifice on that cross is going to experience mercy over blame. And that's what this song is about. And all anybody needs to do is have faith. It's pretty simple.
It's a great song, man. I was going through. Obviously, I've did all these songs another listen since you gave me the list, and it's definitely one of the strongest off the Murder by Pride album. And I'm like you, it's not right up there with my favorite albums. I did the ranking a long time ago, and it was like it wasn't right at the bottom, but it was getting there. Production again, it improved on this album. It improved from Reborn, but not quite there yet. You could see the changes coming to what we're getting now slowly, but yet again, because of the production, and it does play a big part in music, obviously, it wasn't the right thing for Stryper, I don't think, where they're so intricate on their guitars, and it was lost for me. But saying that, this is a great song, and I think a lot of these, I know Stryper keep talking, and Michael Sweet keeps talking about redoing stuff. I just think some of these songs, man, that with a little bit of tweaking, a little bit of technical ability, which they've got in spades, put on them, and that production that they've got now. Wow, man! This song and that whole album would have sounded completely different. If they them little tweaks that they've got now, and I mean, wow.
So correct there. I gotta say, you know what? It's funny. Along that line, when Second Coming first came out, I wasn't even too excited about it. What do I, whatever, right? And I kind of, I put it in my Spotify list or whatever, but I didn't really listen to it. I maybe ran through it once or whatever. And then I just didn't bother. And then I think it was when Stryper had actually made a Spotify, Ultimate Stryper Spotify playlist. And it basically had just about their entire catalog on it, right? And when it starting from the newest and working its way down to the oldest, right? And literally went through everything, like everything. And when it got to that album, The Second Coming, and I started listening to it, and I'm like, holy crap.
Yeah.
These songs are just sound so much better. Like every one of them. Like, on Soldiers, they just so much better production, so much more polished. Same great song, but just sounds better. Everything. Just you heard these different things, and because of that, now I'm like, I am just anxious for them to record a Third Coming. or whatever, and do the latter half of the catalog.
Yeah.
Love to see them re-record a lot of the songs from In God We Trust, Against the Law,
Yeah.
And Reborn and Murder by Pride.
Yeah.
And I think, doing that, I think would just be amazing. I think Murder by Pride for me it was just the start. You kind of just got to feel that they were just on the edge of coming back to their glory days.
Yeah.
Which doesn't quite take me in. No, sorry. Got ahead of myself there.
No.
Scott, we got one more first.
Yeah, but I mean, this was well, you're going to talk about this one anyway, but go on. No, I'll leave it. You talk first. Go on.
Yeah.